In other global news, and in a landmark prisoner swap deal between the U.S. and Venezuela, the United States has released an ally of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in exchange for 10 American detainees and a fugitive dubbed as Fat Leonard. The deal was brokered by the Gulf state of Qatar. Venezuela has handed over a fugitive named Leonard Francis, the man at the center of the U.S. Navy's biggest ever corruption scandal. Well, Francis, also known as Fat Leonard, is a Malaysian defense contractor. He was behind the biggest bribery scandal involving dozens of U.S. Navy officers. Francis owned and operated his family's ship servicing business, named Singapore-based Glen Defence Marine Asia Limited, or GDMA. Well, GDMA supplied food, water and fuel to the U.S. Navy vessels. Leonard was a key contact for U.S. Navy ships at ports across Asia for more than 2 decades. Now, during that time, he wooed the naval officers with some $500,000 gifts, which included cash, prostitutes and luxury travel from Thailand to the Philippines. All this in exchange, the officers concealed the scheme in which Francis would overcharge for supplying ships or charge for fake services at ports he controlled in Southeast Asia. The officers passed him classified information and even went so far as redirecting military vessels to the ports that were lucrative for his Singapore-based ship servicing company. Well, U.S. President Joe Biden made the decision to free Alex Saab, the one-time confidant of socialist leader Maduro, who the United States accuses of laundering money for Caracas. Alex Saab, a close ally of Maduro, was taken into custody in 2020 when his private jet touched down in Cape Verde for a refuel. The entrepreneur has been at the center of accusations involving kickbacks, massive corruption and hoarding black money using a government corruption scheme. Well, according to the U.S. Justice Department, Saab and his associate transferred more than $350 million to the foreign accounts. Saab built prosperous businesses in Colombia's textile industry. Well, in his earlier career, he collaborated with Alvaro Pulido, a drug trafficking Colombian billionaire who invited him to Venezuela for business endeavors. Maduro, on the other hand, celebrated the return of Alex Saab as a triumph for truth. Saab thanked the Venezuelan leader and said that today the miracle of freedom, of justice has become a reality. And asked about a deal to release an ally of President Nicolas Maduro in exchange for prisoners in Venezuela, this is what the U.S. President Joe Biden said.
It's okay because they're freeing American people who are held illegally, and we made a deal with Venezuela at the whole free election. So far, they've maintained their requirements, and that's it.
Well, the White House named 4 of the freed Americans as Joseph Cristela, Evian Hernandez, Jarrell Kinmore and Savoy Wright. Also among those freed were former U.S. soldiers named Luke Alexander Denman and Arian Berry, who were serving 20 years imprisonment for a botched armed invasion into Venezuela in 2020. The detainees were welcomed by the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and also U.S. Secretary Advisor Jake Sullivan. Well, Washington has been easing the pressure on the leftist government while it pushes for progress on democracy, agreeing in October to scale back oil and gas sanctions. Well, the deal represents the Biden administration's boldest move yet to improve ties with the major oil-producing nation and also extract concessions from the self-proclaimed socialist leader Nicolas Maduro. Well, for more on this story, our correspondent Susan Tarani has sent us this report from New York. Take a look.
According to reports, U.S. officials said that Qatari officials helped and played a role in facilitating the prisoner swap between the United States and Venezuela, which took months to complete. Venezuela's Maduro regime presents a vexing geopolitical challenge in America's backyard. First of all, because it is the source of the largest migrant crisis in the Western Hemisphere, but also because of its close relations with Iran and Russia. During the Trump administration, the U.S. indicted Maduro and other high-ranking Venezuelan officials on charges of crimes related to narco-terrorism, money laundering, as well as drug trafficking. In October, Venezuela agreed to open its 2024 presidential elections to opposition candidates, a step the U.S. welcomed. The first step in that deal was to be completed by November 30th. To encourage further progress, the United States lifted some sanctions against Venezuela, however, warned that if November 30th comes and goes and Venezuela doesn't stand up to its side of the deal, then those sanctions would be reimposed on the country. Well, that did happen. The deadline came and went. Venezuela did not adhere to its promises, but the United States so far has not reimposed those sanctions. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.